today, the program on Africa Discourse, we are so privileged to have one man here talking about Mr. Ayamehwe Edokpolo. Of course, when we mention the name Edokpolo, it makes us, we remember, we also remember Chief John Enoyogere Edokpolo, one man that when we talk about the creation of Midwestern region, when we talk about the activities of Midwestern region too, we cannot forget Chief Enoyogere Edokpolo. Ayamehwe Edokpolo, you're welcome to this program, Africa Discourse.
Thanks for having me, my brother. It's a great pleasure.
I know that quickly you may want to share one or two issues with the Midwestern, region creation, 60 referendum 60 years ago.
Yeah, we can't really depart, discussing about Africa, without, situating the Midwest, especially today, the state government set aside, to mark the 60th anniversary of Midwest referendum. Actually, Midwest referendum was held on the 13th of July, 1963. And so the governor, in his wisdom, or the government's wisdom, perhaps, decided to coincide the 32nd anniversary of Edo State creation, which is in August 27th, and also, feature the Midwest, which ought to be 13th July. I'm talking about the referendum now, feature it together. But all the same, it calls for, deep reflection, deep nostalgia, appreciating the heroes of that era, because what you called Bende was actually, an amalgam of Benin and Delta divisions. Benin is BE, then Del is Delta. And so what became Bendel was Benin and Delta divisions. And Benin and Delta divisions were critical divisions of the Western region under the premiership of Chief Bafemi Awolowo. And these regions, suffered untold and untold, marginalization, hardship, oppression, and suppression, and which, inspired the crave, the agitation, for the Midwest region, and for which my father, Apostle John Enoyogere Edokpolo, as he was then called, before becoming Archbishop John Edokpolo, led the political onslaughts, for the creation of the Midwest region, with strict guidance and counseling, spiritual prayers of His Royal Majesty, Omonoba Nedoku Akpolokpolo, Oba Akinzwa II, who was the royal father and who also felt the brunt of the marginalization at that time. And so he inspired my father. And after all said and done, it was a war. Going to that struggle was a war, because there were three regions as it were. You had the Western region, you had the Eastern region, then you had the Northern region. And so no region wanted a break from their regions. So every region, every premier or leadership were holding forth to their region, to ensure that there was no breakaway. But the secessionists of the Midwest, led by my father, went as far as moving to the Northern region, Northern People's Congress, because the country national leadership, parliamentary leadership was majorly led by the NPC, Northern People's Congress, and it was led by Ahmadu Bello. Though Tafawa Balewa was the prime minister, but the political leadership was Chief Alhaji Ahmadu Bello. So they met, they struck a deal, because my father was the founder of Midwest Democratic Front, the political party that pathfined the struggle. And the party was so dear to my father, apart from founding it and providing the finances and everything. He also made sure that the party of operational office was based in his own house, number 7 in Yanuge. That tells you that the man was both physically, spiritually, business-wise, everything thrown into the struggle to ensure that. Well, we thank God today. We also commend and appreciate the governor for that sense of appreciation of the Midwest. But more importantly, I also think that the unsung heroes of that era, must be deliberately appreciated to such a level that they are immortalized for their various roles, for their various interventions. That is the way to instill patriotism in the current and younger generations.
Okay. All right. So we'll keep on remembering Apostle Enoyogeri, Apostle John Enoyogeri Edokpolo, whenever we talk about Midwest region. One man that came, he saw, and of course he conquered. So I don't want to say ably represented here by Ayame.
I'm fine, Junior. I'm number 33 in his 42 children, so it's a privilege to be here.
All right. So let's set the ball rolling on the program today, Africa Discourse, one show that comes your way on this television every Monday at this time. And the ongoing coup in Niger is still on. We understand that ultimatum has been given by the junta in Niger. About 42 hours ultimatum that expired some few hours ago told the French troop that they should leave. And of course, we also understand that the French ambassador has been asked to leave. Now, as we set the ball rolling on this discussion this afternoon, let's look at the whole scenario one more time in Niger. Vis-a-vis the 42 hours ultimatum for the French troop to leave. Now, you and I know that the presence of France in Niger has been so instrumental, trying to curtail the jihadist movement in Niger. So if they leave now, is that not going to be a kind of a serious implication to Niger as it is now, then maybe to other neighboring countries around?
First of all, I want to say that, in every paradigm, shift that you have, there are bound to be implications. And there's no how you look at it. There must be an implication. The perpetuation of the French troop will definitely have implication. The order for the total, quits of the French troop will definitely have implication. The jihadists we talk about, yes, they have been waging some level of, Islamic wars, Islamic, terrorism, so to speak, against the people of Niger. But obviously, this whole thing has been centered about, economic exploitation of the Nigerian resources, natural resources. That's all this whole thing is all about. The French, which claims to be there, quote and unquote, has been involved in some level of economic exploitation likewise. The jihadists have also been doing that. It's just like what is happening around the Boko Haram areas or where you have Boko Haram presence. We tend to think that it's just about killing of people. These people are hiding certain natural mineral resources that they are exploiting, at the detriment of the country. And this exploitation, are not being accounted for in the national treasury, and thereby depleting our resources. So basically, I would think that the order for the French to leave will have very adverse implications on the French government, which we feel saddened, which we feel depressed, especially asking the ambassador to leave. Obviously, the head of the military junta has unmistakably, declared, a no diplomatic relation with the French government. That's the position. And obviously, when the government is acting this way, the military junta is acting this way, you want to appreciate that it has another powerful government that is behind it, or it's just a product of a revolution in which the people want a total independence, from all manners of foreign exploitation. They want a total emancipation. And so I see this junta, trying to play to the gallery of the Nigerians, whom we have seen on the, various social media platforms, singing singing support. Like I said in the last time, you don't take some of these express social media supports to the bank, because some of them are also aided by the military junta or to justify its presence. But that is not to say that the people of Niger have not been victims of very devious, natural resource exploitation. That's not to say. They have been. And so there is also this cry, for freedom and for emancipation. And so for me, I think that it is a way to announce, that enough is enough.
Okay. All right. So quickly, before we take a pause now, let us quickly ask the question now. What do you think? I mean, should the French ambassador should he have waited for this ultimatum? To come
of course, it has. Of course, the French ambassador ought to have waited. It is the natural. It is the diplomatic course of action. Unless the government of France or the French government had asked the ambassador to leave. If the French ambassador has not asked the ambassador has no moral or political, disposition.
Now we're talking about a country that is now, headed by a military junta.
You have all embassies must remain there unless the government, the home country, requests or recall such an ambassador.
Yeah.
So they cannot live on their own. Don't mind you, they are not there at their own accord. They are representing a government. And so even the communication that they should leave, they cannot leave unless the home government provides the wherewithal, i.e. the logistics, the transport and everything for them to leave. So that is the way this thing is done.
Okay. All right. So we quickly take a short pause now. Don't forget the program is Africa Discourse on independent television. And when we return on the other side, we're going to be looking at some key more issues as related to the ongoing coup in Niger. Please stay tuned. All right, thank you one more time. The program Stay Here, Africa Discourse on independent television. And we still have Ayamekwe Edokpolo here, a foremost politician and also an international public affairs analyst. Now, we are looking at the ongoing coup in Niger and the ultimatum that has been handed down to the French troop, including the French ambassador, who has been told to leave in 48 hours. We understand that that has since elapsed now. So latest update shows that the French presence is still very much in Niger. So we do not know what is going to be going on any moment from now. Now, let's take our minds back to one or two things that we heard. Talking about the ECOWAS now. ECOWAS had a meeting. The last one was in Accra in Ghana, where they said that they have concluded all arrangements to carry out a military intervention in order to bring in the ousted president in Niger. Now, world leaders have not, looked at that with some good eyes. And the world is still waiting. Nobody knows what ECOWAS is going to do. Let's talk along that line. ECOWAS doing military intervention in Niger. Do you think that will bring some kind of respite to the situation?
I think to some extent is a very fundamental pressure on the junta, to understand that ECOWAS, as a sub-regional government, has a responsibility to see that the democratic, engines or engine rooms of the various countries within its bloc, are fledging, and they are moving, and they are in stable and good health, in terms of the polity now. And so once there is a truncation, once there is a military interregnum, once there is a military encroachment into a democratic system, of course, you expect a responsible sub-regional government, to take some responsible measures. And one of such measures is diplomacy, but diplomacy that goes along with very fundamental threats, and such threats, people should be able to see the various countries that are going to provide, military supports for the military wing of the sub-regional bloc, i.e. ECOWAS now. They should be able to see them, that they are holding meetings here and there. And so that in itself will put pressure on the junta to say, look, what are we going to gain by the time these people come here and our country is leveled down? We all know what happened. We all knew what happened in Iran, Iraq, and Saddam Hussein led Libya. Even though we condemn these interventions by NATO forces, but the greatest receiving ends were the countries.
Yeah, but the junta in Niger is probably not standing alone on this.
Yeah, no. Yeah, as much as it's not standing alone, we have seen the body language of the United States government, for instance, is directly inclined to an ECOWAS military intervention.
And also the body language of
Russia. Russia has advised against any military intervention.
So
yeah, so you definitely have that. You definitely have, you know, a situation where, you know, Russia and the US, you know, drive, you know, the world politics majorly. And so you will have them holding diverse views. You know, but I think that even the junta leadership has not helped matters. You know, when it said that it's going to hand over in 3 years' time. And so that in itself is to say we're war for war and all that. So, but like I said, they are going to be having threats and counter threats. And when the junta feels that the threat is realistic and is an impeding war, you know, I see the junta buying down, you know. But when it sees that it can also use our people here to take protests to Abuja and say, no, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there, and all that. They also know that they know some persons in the National Assembly. We're also hearing social media propaganda now telling us that the wife of the junta leadership is from Kebbi State or so, and it's a Nigerian, and it's like your in-law kind of tea and all that. All of these are all propaganda machines to see that Tinubu-led ECOWAS, you know, bow down from his disposition.
Now, from the look of things, the junta is so resolute, and of course, ECOWAS is also resolute too. From all indications, there may be a military intervention in Niger.
Most likely.
Most likely. So the big question is military intervention in Niger, and of course, Nigeria not being part of that intervention. And Nigeria is at the chairmanship of ECOWAS. So what are they? How do you want to react to that?
There is no way Nigeria is not part of military intervention. If ECOWAS says today they are entering Niger, of course, Nigerian troops are going to provide leadership for the ECOWAS military troop.
But the National Assembly did not approve.
Yes, the National Assembly has not approved of it. But let us not also be carried away by, you know, what we read and what we see. We must understand the powers of the president. The president of a country, you know, wields executive power. You know, presidential, you know, we operate an executive presidency.
We are talking about national interest.
You know, we're talking about, as much as we are talking about national interest, you should also understand that the security of the country is vested primarily on the President of the Federal Republic. And if security reports are to the effect that the junta poses a fundamental security threat to the country, the president, it's not a decision alone that the president will make. These are things we try to,
yeah, but that's why the president has sought the approval of the National Assembly now, and the National Assembly rejected. So
yes, it rejected. So at that time, at the time the National Assembly rejected, it rejected it based on facts before it. It does not mean that the National Assembly may not or will not in future consider it.
Now,
as at the time they did, as I speak to you personally, I am opposed to. I must make that clear. I am opposed to, you know, any military intervention in Niger.
Now, from your
they are our neighbors, and God forbid there is military intervention. There will be this enmity almost for life. It's not something that we are going to gain. Nobody really like war, and it's also going to polarize our own internal security crisis. We already have enough on our hands with Boko Haram, you know, even with some of these ESN, you know, and all that, you know, plaguing our economic survival and all that. I already know that. But I always want us to divorce the chairmanship of ECOWAS, you know, from Tinubu being president of Nigeria, because people tend to think that Tinubu is wanting to. No, it is the office of the chairman of ECOWAS. But we discussed that the last time. We analyzed that.
Yeah, but we are looking at...
It's not a personal interest of... So if other ECOWAS nations...
We are looking at a country that goes with the big brother impression thing. A big brother to Africa, Nigeria. And of course, we have the chairman as our own president. Now, should the case ECOWAS goes on military intervention into Niger, Nigeria as it stands now does not have the National Assembly support. And you are saying that, as it were, then that was what the National Assembly said then. Now, what are the indications now that maybe in very near future that Nigeria's National Assembly will have to say, okay, the troop can now go? What are the indications?
Let me make, at the risk of being misinterpreted or misconstrued, let me make bold to say this statement to you, that the choice for military intervention in Niger on the part of Nigerian military is not a decision to be taken to the National Assembly if the President of the Federal Republic is disposed to it. I will explain this to you. The law is very clear on the powers of the President. No, it's not an attempt to limit or whittle or relegate the powers of the National Assembly. You see, when there is threats, when there is a realistic threat to the Federal Republic, to the territory of the Federation, it's not a matter you now put on a paper and send to the Chief of Staff, say, go and meet them. They say, no, they are today is Sunday. No, they will convey on Tuesday. It's not, those are not matters you do, take all those things to. They are matters for very proactive, responsive, or if you like, instantaneous reaction. And which has to do with move in there. That's an order. Now, excuse me, when that order is given, it will not be the President will now have to revert to the leadership of the National Assembly and explain to them, the leadership, I said the leadership of the National Assembly, and explain to them why he has taken this action. Now, and for them, they will now have to look at the procedures for deliberating and approving funding for it.
Now, the threat that people keep on talking about, the military junta threats, it poses threats to some form of security threats to Nigeria. What do you think are the threats now?
You will not see. You see, you will need a military expert, a military analyst, to be able to put these things to you. But I know that for instance, now the border between Nigeria and Niger is bordered by military blocks. There are military checkpoints on both sides. The Nigerians have their own, we have our own. There's already tension there. And there's no free flow, free movement of our people. And there's also no free movement of their people. So you already have tensions there. Now, there are other issues. For instance, some of their persons, some of their, quote unquote, terrorist elements, loyal to that place may have come into this place, and there could be some level of communication. There could be some build up to an attack, either within the border or. These are hypothetical. I've not said they are. So I shouldn't be misconstrued.
Yeah,
I've not said
just trying
these
to
are
explain
I'm trying to explain situations, possibilities that will inevitably drive the president to giving the order. Like in the case of the United States, George W. Bush Jr. wrote a letter to the Senate of the United States. And in the letter, he said, as I speak to you, the United States Army are on their way to Iraq. Yeah. Yes, that is the powers of the president. So, but no one prays or no one seeks that such powers are abused. To avoid abuse, that is why the National Assembly have the impeachment power. Once they see abuse. So the point I'm trying to make is that such actions must be weeded in the overriding interest of the public or of the nation. Once the interest of the nation is the fulcrum or the basis for such an action, it is well and good. So, but we still continue to pray that God intervenes in such a way that the tension goes down and the people, the peace properly returns. And the only way peace can return, as much as we see jubilations and all that, there's no democracy in the place. The president is locked up somewhere. We are told now that his health is deteriorating. An elected president, elected by people, and so fine. But as much as the people says they don't want certain relationships that the former president has maintained, which has fueled their economic and natural resource exploitation.
And security issues.
And so I buy that. It makes sense to me that some of this exploitation, some of these neo-colonial pipe drains and pipelines must and they must be instantaneously disconnected for the good of the people.
Okay,
but don't also forget that as much as France have their troops there, the United States have troops in Niger, Russia have troops in Niger.
We understand that
and
United States troop also is about leaving now.
Yeah, it's possible that they are leaving, but they've always had these troops there. I think the last time I checked, the United States had 1,000 troops of soldiers there. And this is not something that started today. So it tells you that people have been, interested in exploration or exploitation, as the case may be, of the natural resource of this country. And it's quite unfortunate. Okay. And you can now appreciate why Africa has really not grown. Because all of this military, all of this security presence and all that, they are doing just one thing, promoting the foreign interest of their country, and which is largely antithetical to the interest of the country that they are based. And so, because the U.S. troop there, for instance, their overriding interest is the interest of the United States, not the interest of the Niger people.
All right, so before we came to all this now, we also saw whereby the military junta in Niger had to refer to Mohamed Bazoum's government as treason, that it committed treasonable offense and all that. Now, for a military junta to refer to a democratically elected president as that he committed treason, how do you react to that?
There's nothing to react other than to say it's an aberration.
What is an aberration?
It's an aberration in the first place for a military government to accuse a government that you have deposed of. You have deposed of a government. And you are not accusing that government of treasonable felony. What is treason that he has done? In proper situation, can a major general...
It should be the other way around.
You understand. So this is the aberration that the ECOWAS is trying to cure. But the process of curing it, is also obstacled by the fact that the junta want to perpetuate itself.
Now, do you think the ECOWAS may wait for 3 years? I mean,
these are, if we say now that the ECOWAS will not wait for 3 years, some persons will interpret, my appearance to be supporting the military intervention in that place.
But the junta has said that 3 years that they will solve the country.
This misconception we are trying to avoid. But it does not stop some of us from attempting to say the truth and situate the facts and lay them bare and allow the viewers and listeners to make the conclusions. The fact must be made. The junta has obliterated a democratic will of the people.
Yeah, but
people queue up on the line to vote for a government. They put the government in place. Now, if that government is not popular, there are ways and means to take that government out. One of such is impeachment. One of such is continuous protestations of the people. You go to the presidential wing of that government. Don't block his road. Sit down there. Nobody's going to shoot you.
But you and I know that impeachment would not have been possible.
There are possibilities, because when the protestations become consistent, there will be international pressure on the presidents to find a way to take a bar out. It's normal. It's normal. We have seen it happening. You see, but some people do not have patience, to persist in their protestation, especially peaceful protestation. I'm not talking of taking arms. No. Just remain there. Let us all remain on the road. Don't block the entrance. Don't block the exit. Let the governor, let the president have free and flow exit. Just stay in one corner there. Just be doing your thing. The man will not have peace of mind. The man will not have peace of mind. While he's at home, he sees that nobody stopped him from going out and coming in. But people are there. He will not have peace of mind. And these are peaceful ways to take governments out.
All right, so as we draw the conclusion today on the program Africa Discourse on Independent Television, the coup is ongoing, there's no doubt about that. ECOWAS has said that military intervention will be employed. And of course, Mohamed Bazoum must be returned as the president of Niger, and whereby the military junta in Niger has said that 3 years is what they need. So the big question is, will ECOWAS wait for 3 years, or ECOWAS will strike?
I think they can be a middle position. When there are two extremes, diplomatic shuttles or diplomatic pathfinders will come to, suggest a middle ground. And one of such middle ground could be, okay, let's have an interim national government.
Okay.
Let's have an interim national. Let's look for a former permanent secretary in Niger. Let's look for this. Let's bring them to come and so that they're on one ground, that all members of the military junta will be granted amnesty, be granted pardon from arrest, from prosecution for what they have done and all that. then you Bazoum go home, you have not really done well.
But don't you also like the
so these are interim, these interim national government can be a plausible, soft landing. And so giving the mandate to say, gentlemen, whether you like it or not, a year, 6 months is enough to organize the return of democracy to Niger.
Yeah, the governments in Niger now may not be acceptable, may not be, recognized by law. But let us look at the way the government has been constituted. I mean, bringing civilian personnel into military.
No, it's normal. Those ones are normal. Bringing military and go and get an economist to make a chairman of the economists or economy. All these things, you see, between you and I. You see, we have, as political scientists, we have some technologies that we have conceptualized. And one of them, we have used words like, populist military regimes. We've seen a military regime, when you talk about Rawlings of Ghana, then the other one of Burkina Faso, you have seen populist regimes that tends to be revolutionary. You see a military head of state telling you that there are Prado, I'm not going to ride Prado, I'm going to ride a regular 504. You will see the people, jump to the streets to celebrate such a government. So this is the kind of one we want. This is like our own.
Whereas it doesn't change the fact that it's a military government.
It doesn't change the fact, but again, if his actions are well-meaning, I'm not talking of just being
the configuration of the government.
No. I'm talking of being practically in the interest of the people. And so that's where we talk about populist military regimes. So now, as we look at Niger, you saw there's really nothing, they cannot really do everything. The military personnel will not really do everything. So they will definitely bring in civilians. So the point I'm making is that it's not something we sing Hosanna for, that they appointed an economist, the man is Oxford trained, the man is trained for the University of Lagos. Those are not the issues. They will definitely have civilians to man certain strategic ends.
All right, so I want to say a very big thank you to Ayamekwe Edukpolo for finding time to come today, talking about the ongoing Niger situation. The French, has been given ultimatum, 48 hours ultimatum. We understand that the ultimatum has since elapsed, so we do not know what is going on now, whether they're going to be driven out of Niger by the military junta in Niger. So we just hope and pray that what is going on in Niger will really come to an end so that we can find some peace in this part of Africa. I want to say a very big thank you one more time to Ayamekwe Edukpolo for finding time to come on the show.
The pleasure has been mine, my brother.
All right, now, so on to same time next week, the program Africa Discourse on Independent Television. My name is Evan Sunokuge. Goodbye and God bless you.